Welcome back to our transmission and our special coverage for the U.S.-Iranian war. And U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said negotiations over a peace deal to end the Middle East war were in the final stages after Iran and Israel halt attacks that threatened to reignite the months-long conflict. Iran fired missiles at Israel on Sunday in response to strikes against Lebanon's Hezbollah in the southern suburbs of Beirut before Israel struck back despite Trump's efforts to dissuade Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from doing so. And to shed more light on the latest developments in the region, we are joined over the phone by Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
So, sir, how do you assess now the situation in the Middle East after U.S. President Donald Trump says the peace deal with Iran is in the final stages?
Well, actually, I think to analyze the current situation in Lebanon and move beyond the daily headlines military development.
Yes.
What is actually unfolding today is not merely an episode of the cross-border confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah. But Lebanon has become a critical arena where broader regional and international power dynamics being tested. I mean, on one hand, you have the Lebanese official government, we have Hezbollah, we have Israel, and we have the United States, and above all, we have also Iran. So actually, this is becoming a very critical situation where many powers are being testing each other on the Lebanese part. Israel continues to rely heavily on military pressure.
Yes.
This is what it wants. This is what it continues to do. Although we heard a very clear report about total disagreement between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu on what should be the next step. The United States prefer to reach the agreement. We've been listening and hearing about very close results soon to be announced between the United States and Iran. Nevertheless, Israel keeps totally ignoring the calls of the United States to continue its activities in southern Lebanon. We have also to understand that we have over 1 million Lebanese who have been forcibly displaced because of the Israeli actions. And of course, we have the idea of disarmament Hezbollah,
yes.
the so-called Israeli alibi all the time to continue its aggression on Lebanon and on south and even above the Litani area.
And in your opinion, what are Israel's objectives in Lebanon at this stage?
Well, as we all know, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, appears committed to maintain military pressure. This is what he thinks will actually bring Hezbollah on its knees, and for a longer period, as much as he can. His calculation is based on the belief that any premature reduction in military operations could allow Israel adversary Hezbollah to regroup and restore its capabilities, and this is what Israel does want to do, especially that according to Israeli media and so on, Prime Minister Netanyahu couldn't achieve any goals of the war that's been raging in the Middle East for the last 3 years. I mean, whether we are talking about the Palestinian people, according to the Israelis, although of course the success on the ground, I mean, over 60% of Gaza Strip is now stripped from the Palestinians and occupied, full-fledged occupation by the Israelis, and so is the West Bank. But nevertheless, the Hamas is still there, and according to Israeli observers, this means that he lost the war against Hamas. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is still there, but as I said it before on your platform, I will repeat it again. Hezbollah has become a real treasure for Israel right now, because its presence, although a very weak one, still represents what Israel needs to continue its aggression on Lebanon and to continue its aggression on South Lebanon. I think we are talking right now about almost 25% of Lebanese soil has been occupied by the Israelis. And this is going to be the Israeli strong point to negotiate the future of the region while holding 25% of Lebanese soil, and maybe it will withdraw to some point, keeping around 20% or more or less of the Lebanese soil, which I think is going to be a loss for the Lebanese to lose around 20% of their soil. So the situation is very volatile and is very fluid. And Mr. Trump wants to reach a result by all means and by actually exerting pressure on the Lebanese, since he cannot exert real pressure on Israel to maintain operation within limits. And that's why he's pushing the Lebanese, he's pushing the Arab side to accept his conditions more rather than pushing Israel back from where it is right now.
So, sir, also, if we talk about Lebanon again, and why is Lebanon becoming the main flashpoint despite ongoing U.S.-Iran negotiations?
It has always been, actually, it's not now. I mean, if we remember the first peace accord that were agreed on, the ceasefires were agreed on, the first declarations made even by President Trump himself that there will be calm all over the region, on all fronts. And then Israel shows that it doesn't want to include Lebanon in this, and it made an operation that killed in the few days over 300 Lebanese. Now we are reaching over 3,000, I think, Lebanese that have been killed, and so forth. So it's Israel that wants to maintain the pressure on Hezbollah by continuing its aggression against the Lebanese people. And actually, President Trump, after a phone call right after the peace declaration, he said that Lebanon is not included in the agreement because there is Hezbollah there, to the point that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has to come out himself to say that unfortunately what President Trump is saying is not accurate, and that Lebanon was included in the original peace plan. So actually it's Israel that keeps continuing its pressure, and the only battle that the United States cannot really control is Lebanon. Whether we are talking about Iran itself or any other aggression on Syria or anything, the United States do not actually it's the United States that holds the main card. But when it comes to Lebanon, it's Israel that holds the main card, and that's why Israel is continuing pressure to force President Trump to accept his condition about excluding Lebanon from any peace accord in the future, because this is what President Netanyahu wants to at least gather enough votes to secure his victory for the next elections if he wants to continue in the political scene.
So, sir, if a U.S.-Iran agreement is reached, would it automatically reduce violence in Lebanon, or do you think Hezbollah is likely to maintain an independent position?
It depends on the conditions of the term that we are going to reach, and it depends on how bad President Trump and Iran want to reach a resolution. Iran, on one hand, have economic problems, and it knows that the minute it will agree on President Trump's condition, it can be around $24 billion. It will not all, of course, be taken at one moment, but I mean, on several payments. But first of all, we will have $12 billion to be used by Iran. So Iran has an economic problem, and that's why it wants to reach an agreement. President Trump wants to calm the situation so that he can pretend that his military victory is also coupled with a diplomatic victory by forcing Iran to stop its nuclear program and its missile program and so on. And of course, this cannot be reached if we cannot reach another agreement on Lebanon, because Iran insists that all fronts has to be secured, and we cannot leave the Lebanese to suffer if there is only one one peace accord that does not include Lebanon. So that's why Lebanon has become increasingly more and more important to all parties, because everybody knows without an agreement that will include Lebanon, then there will not be peace in the Middle East. And accordingly, Iran will not be safe. The Hormuz Strait will remain closed. The Gulf countries will be under threat from the Iranian missiles. Israel will not be able to achieve its goals. So everybody knows that without secure Lebanon, we cannot reach a final agreement. All parties calm down.
So, sir, is there an emerging policy divergence between Trump and Netanyahu? Can Israel continue operations independently of U.S. preferences? And what are the implications of Trump's public criticism of Israeli escalations?
Well, honestly, I think this is something that, for the first time, we see it so clearly, the divergence. Of course, we should not be in thinking that there is a new formula about the support of the United States to Israel. I mean, this is a situation that will not see any breakthrough. I mean, the United States continues support for Israel unconditionally and on all fronts, militarily and diplomatically and politically and everything. But of course, there is a difference and divergence in tactics about what should be done first and what should be come later. And this, from this point, is the misunderstanding between the two leaders, Trump and Netanyahu. And I believe that who has the serious leverage on the other one will be able to convince the other party. I mean, whether it's Mr. Netanyahu has the leverage on President Trump, who is actually, as it has been called, I mean, the first Zionist president of the United States. I mean, he's more president than many Israelis. And of course, on the other hand, we have the necessity of reaching agreement for the peace, so that he can secure also the victory in the elections, in the midterm elections of Congress, which is crucial to President Trump in order to continue his control over the political scene in the next 2 years. Or if he loses the majority in the Congress, that would mean simply that he will not be able to do as he pleases, as he is doing right now, because the Democrats will block every decision of the president because they have the majority. So each one has something to reach there. And whether it's going to be Mr. Trump who is going to be able to convince Mr. Netanyahu, or it's going to be Mr. Netanyahu who is going to force President Trump to accept his conditions to end the war in Lebanon. In all cases, I believe that the countries of the Middle East, we are going to pay the most price for these misunderstandings. But I believe that President Trump will eventually be able to convince Prime Minister Netanyahu, because simply, if he is going to rule the next couple of years without any majority in the Congress, so he will not be able to help himself, he will not be able to help Israel, he will not be able to help any of his allies. So it's not in best interest of Prime Minister Netanyahu to continue his pressure on President Trump, or he will lose everything he already won with President Trump.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being with us. And by that, we come to the end of our special coverage. Thank you for watching.